It is finally time for Nvidia Corporation. This is going to be a hot topic, and whether I want to or not, I may accidentally say one or two controversial things. This channel is not about investment advice. It is about financial analysis and about making it more accessible and fun. Look into the stories behind the numbers. I am going to be putting Nvidia into my proprietary valuation ranking. See if during the video you can guess what rank Nvidia is going to get. Of course, there are timestamps in the description. All my videos are designed to be navigated however it is you want, whatever you're most comfortable with, and you can skip right to the ranking if that's what you prefer. Okay, let's dive in so that your wisdom can blossom. We're going to go directly to the classic opening move. Okay, the statement of income. Research and development is growing faster than revenue. They were quite profitable, almost doubling their profit from 2 years ago to last year. They have elected to up the research and development. Onto the balance sheet, assets are about twice as much as liability. Now, weirdly enough, most of their assets is in marketable securities. And if you've been following along with the videos, this seems to be what almost every company has decided to do. Interest rates have started to escalate throughout the world, and ubiquitously companies are, for some reason that I can't understand, but they're all, and it's a trend to be purchasing marketable securities. Now, Nvidia is doing that as the bulk of their assets. Despite what we may think of Nvidia, a quarter of everything that they have to work with in marketable securities. And in the statement of cash flows, you don't even have to worry about. They're no longer able to defer income taxes. Fair enough. Having looked at all three financial statements now for the opening move, Nvidia is increasing their inventories a little bit faster. It's not even a crazy amount. I think we're going to search in the notes for more details about what is in inventories. Let's look at their inventories note. I've had previous videos about this. Check out the at core video if you want a more in-depth explanation of FIFO versus LIFO inventory management. Usually they're expecting that they're going to sell whatever their product is, whatever their inventory consists of, in less than a year's time. That's usually the implication when a company decides to use first in or first out. Now, the actual inventory is made of unassembled wafers. That's interesting. NVIDIA has a pretty broad definition of inventory. They're including the labor and overhead associated with purchases. This might have a lot to do with the fact that they need to essentially think of everything that isn't the design as a cost needed in order to sell their main product, which is a design. If you want to sell designs, then the cost of your inventory is every cost that you need in order to have designs stocked up and ready on the shelves for people to just pick up and use. Literally everything, the entire supply chain of chip is just a support cost. Kind of a strange position to be in, but I guess it makes sense. If NVIDIA employees weren't focused exclusively on just making schematics, some of these things might not be considered support costs. Let's check out the item one. It would be ideal if NVIDIA itself could somehow explain to us how to think about this kind of different approach to inventory definition. In terms of the sales and the growth of the company. Is an item one section titled manufacturing. I do think it's going to be related. At the bat, we do not manufacture semiconductors used for our products. They employ key suppliers for all phases of the manufacturing process. Employing key suppliers is not the key point here. The all phases part. Very few companies ever even attempt that. So what are all phases? Well, wafer fabrication, assembly, testing, and packaging. Should also include shipping because in their inventory section, they also included shipping. They believe they can avoid many of the significant costs and risks associated with owning and operating manufacturing operations. Not just that they don't own any of that. Their suppliers are responsible for the procurement of most of the raw materials used in the production of products. Now that they are saying that in a way that implies that they're insulated from the fluctuation of raw material prices. People that procure those things themselves are able to very reasonably obtain insurance. Nvidia would not find it very easy to get good prices on insurance. They're a step removed from this part of the supply chain. So I would say at best, this is a neutral. They can focus on product design, additional quality assurance, marketing, and customer support. They then are mentioning many of their quote unquote key suppliers. We could spend many days really going through all these different large electronics companies. But a typical product life cycle for them, they design it, they send off a bunch of contracts to all, like basically a dozen or more different companies, and then they just get the finished product. They then perform quality assurance and configuration using test equipment. Now that configuration is interesting because I'm willing to bet that NVIDIA's probably not sharing the full design just to make sure that they can use all these suppliers without necessarily having no control over whether they get to sell it at the end or not. Let's focus our attention now to a section also in the item one called patents and proprietary rights. The first time in a while that I've looked so much into the patents. What we should be taking away from this annual report so far is that NVIDIA must have a lot of talent. They command a lot of respect from these supply chains. They must be doing something quite innovative and special to be making billions of dollars, right? Let's say their technology gets replicated and the patent doesn't actually protect it as much as NVIDIA is assuming right now. For NVIDIA, that would be game over. Hey, if you're getting more comfortable uncovering the stories behind the numbers, please like and subscribe. And I might be exaggerating a bit, but I've not seen anything to make me feel safe that NVIDIA is doing anything other than designing patents. Designing patents can be obviously very profitable. It's also very capital light, which what looked like a defensive makeup probably changed that to be they don't need to have any other assets in terms of the whole process of creating hardware. They create designs and then manage contracts. The capital that they need for that, you could imagine that it's probably closer to just a filing cabinet, a couple of number two pencils to draw the schematics. Now, of course, that's a joke, but they're probably closer to that than I was thinking when I first looked into this, to be honest. These patents have expiration dates ranging from already expired from the time of this video, well, which is fair enough. I mean, this would have been basically 2 months out from when this report was published, and this is the latest annual report. So basically, their patents already are expiring, but all the way until 2045 for some patents. They warn that many countries may not respect the patents. Calling out Asia specifically, to be honest, is fair. They're the ones with the most history of creating problems for companies like Nvidia. A significant portions of their key suppliers did seem to be Asian entities. We don't have to worry about that necessarily. You have to have more background than just stereotype in order to make big decisions. Continuously assessing whether to seek formal protection for particular patents and technologies based on 4 factors. Now, I love this because this is something that lets me know as an investor that this is more than I would see in most annual reports. They do consider this a high priority, which makes a lot of sense to me. Now, the 4 factors are the location in which products are manufactured, the strategic technology or product directions in different countries. They're going to be extra sensitive when dealing with different countries. Countries that would find it perhaps strategically important to get, or to at least feel like they're getting more technology, might see NVIDIA as a target, understanding if they're being seen as a target or not. The degree to which IP laws exist and are meaningfully enforced, the commercial significance of our operations and our competitors' operations in particular countries and regions. Now, I've been thinking here for a couple minutes whether to do this or not. I started this video very much aware that NVIDIA has been in the news, knowing that anyone who's seeing an NVIDIA video is going to want to talk about artificial intelligence. NVIDIA is at the center of all these stories, we'll call them. I will avoid saying speculate. Whoops. Now, the thing is I'm not finding artificial intelligence to be very much focused on this annual report. Now, you can get away with being a lot more lax with what you're saying on calls and stuff. Maybe not completely lax, but relative to having a written annual report, this is going to be permanent. The SEC makes copies and then doesn't let you modify the copies. And so you have to be very sure you want something to be in your permanent record. NVIDIA, hasn't completely not said artificial intelligence, but they don't really have an emphasis on artificial intelligence at all. That being said, though, I did find something, and it's in a section of the annual report that we have never really looked at together before on this channel. We're in the item 1, but in a section called the risk factors summary. They're very much encouraged to list these risks that they're aware of and then just disclose and talk to investors about how they think about them, you know? So investors love it if you talk about risks. Nvidia has helpfully broken down risks related to demand, supply, and manufacturing. And the very, very first risk is Nvidia recognizing themselves that there may be a failure to estimate customer demand properly in the past has led and could continue to lead to mismatches between supply and demand. Because they use so many third parties and third parties to manufacture and assemble products is such a big deal, efforts that they have to engage in is matching up what they tell third parties that they need with what their customers are going to be expecting. And there is a lag of semiconductors and GPUs and et cetera. It does require time. It isn't easy to make sure that all of your suppliers, of which there are many, 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 are going to be cored. And they then explain that they typically maintain inventory in advance of anticipated demand. Their employees are spending time trying to conduct research to anticipate what is going to be needed. I appreciate this a lot. They straight up say that they have had periods of shortages in the past, which increased the time it took for orders to be fulfilled. It even took longer than 12 months between when a customer asked for a product and when Nvidia was able to deliver that product. And now that is terrible because remembering their inventory management, they themselves have elected to use first in, first out. More than 12 months is a disaster for this sort of business because Nvidia really wants to get all products to be that they make to be sold in less than 12 months. This is what we saw in the opening move, is that there is Nvidia prioritizing the buildup of inventory. It's because in the past they got burnt by not having enough inventory. That's the supply side. Now the demand side, a bit of a balancing act here where in the past they saw demand grow faster than they could handle. Hopefully that continues to happen. But you do got to say that if you're already a significantly larger company, it's kind of not what you would assume that you would be continuing to have the same rate of growth. Here they're boiling it down to several bullet points in their calculations of anticipated demand. Here it is, the demand for AI related cloud services. They could have said AI services. They specifically said AI related cloud services, narrower target market than just saying AI in general. And that's not a bad thing. NVIDIA's biggest challenge is managing all of the people that it farms out to the manufacturing of its designs for. Even if you make it through that whole hurdle of managing and balancing, there's the next hurdle, which is that if your customers want something, they're only going to be willing or able to wait for a certain amount of time. And instead of cutting it close, NVIDIA is deciding and electing to play it safe. The largest companies you could imagine, right? Like Microsoft, Google, which if you haven't checked out my Google video, just came out last week. And then other companies like this, not going to start signing up a bunch of tiny AI companies, brand new AI companies. A lot of these companies will go bankrupt if they make a business plan, buy chips from Nvidia, and then have to wait 12 months. They might not survive 12 months if they're a smaller company. Rather than have that be a risk in which a couple years out the line, Nvidia gets the reputation of being a startup killer, which unfortunately could happen, right? That's going to be very bad for Nvidia. Whereas if they focus on the cloud services, the giant companies, sure, they might be limiting their total addressable market. It's them recognizing that they already have a strong brand and that protecting their patents and protecting their strong brand is a better business decision than staying in growth at all costs, take in as many orders as you can and we'll figure it out later. Reaching a state of maturity here where they're just more content leaning back and letting the best clients use the best products, which they would argue is them. NVIDIA, however, is not going to be involved in every AI project ever, as is sometimes alluded to in the news cycle. An interesting company, they're going to focus on just a few high quality clients. You could still be dozens and dozens of large clients, which is billions of dollars, right? But relatively a few high quality clients, farming out the actual manufacturing to relatively cheap labor. As long as NVIDIA is able to maintain its secrets as it becomes increasingly international. Now, this is the first 2023 season video that I am posting. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video and your wisdom as often as possible. NVIDIA is ranked number 1 out of 3, kicking off the 2023 season and perhaps the AI revolution in style for sure, in a capital light way.